Well, hello again, and just a short video. Well, it may not be short, mine never are. Once again on these one of these tiny cheap FM transmitters made in China, of course, and I've done rather a lot of videos on these, so I'm rather flogging it to death, but this one is exhibiting some rather strange behaviour. Now, I used one up a few weeks ago, the last one I had, in a project. I put one in a DAB tuner because the station I wanted to listen to is only available on LED. Maybe I should turn off the dehumidifier. So that's a bit quieter, I hope. I don't know if you heard that noise in the background, but it's got so damp in here recently, I thought I'd put a dehumidifier in here. So where was I? Yeah, I used one up and I put one in a DAB tuner and all that, so I could listen to that digital signal on a pocket FM radio, and it worked fine. So I thought I'd buy another one of these, and then I found out they're not quite as cheap as they used to be. Years ago, when I bought the first one, they were about £5 on eBay with free delivery. Well, I looked on eBay and free delivery doesn't seem to exist very often now, and the total cost buying on eBay was about £10, which I didn't really want to spend if I could help it. So I looked on AliExpress and found one on there for I think £6.50 with free delivery. So I bought that and it came fairly quick. Always been quite impressed with AliExpress, but things have changed with these transmitters. Okay, they still produce an awful spectral purity, but you know, that can be filtered as I do. Let's look at the spectrum analyzer. So that's about maybe that's good enough. I'm on 87.5 and hang on, I think my external reference has fallen out. Yeah, my 10 megahertz reference has fallen out. I was still not working. Yes, it is. I'm just wondering, this is 87.5, so 66 kilohertz off. Okay. Well, let's try moving it up a bit, the frequency. 7.6. Actually, that's a bit odd. It's only, when I first got this one, it was only 20 kilohertz off. They're always high in frequency because this should be 87.7 and it's 66 kilohertz high. But no matter, I'm sure all will be revealed later. But the main difference I noticed was the power output. You were very lucky to get 7 dBm on the ones I've used before. This one's up to nearly 10 dBm, which is interesting. So whether they've changed that design slightly, I don't know. But it's not 7 dBm all the way across the band. So if I try and change it to the top of the band, the easiest way to do that is to go down right. So 107.9 is only 6.5 dBm. That's fine. I mean, I don't need massive power on these things. I think I know why I'm getting a different frequency to what I measured earlier. Let me move it back down the band again. That's 87 now. I do peak on that. I take the span out a bit. You can see all the nasty spurs that you have to filter and all this crap, which is maybe phase noise from the synthesizer, I don't know. But whatever, let's take the span down. Now this one, that's on a narrow, what's the span? 200 kilohertz span. Right. Everything's going wrong in this video. But anyway, you can see all these tones. Well, that's the 19 kilohertz pilot tone for the stereo. But that shouldn't be there because, let me turn it off again. Turn the power off. And let it boot up. There you go. When it boots up, normally, it should default into stereo. But there is no stereo. It's mono. It's just a pure carrier. Why I was getting those tones just now, I don't know. But this is constant behaviour. I've tried it many times. When it first boots up, it goes into mono mode, which is not necessarily what you want it to do. And there are two pads on the board which I shall show you. But you can set it to mono mode. Okay, turn the board over, and I know it's going to be incredibly hard to see, but there's two pads there which I've connected wires to, and if you short those pads together, it should switch from stereo to mono. But I'm still getting with it, and the wires are not connected at the moment, right? So it should be in stereo, not mono. Well, if I go back to the spectrum analyzer, right, mono. Now you have to take my word for this, but I'm going to short those wires together that connect to that mono selection pads. So I've shorted them together. Now I'm going to de-short them, and we got stereo. Well, that's no good, is it? You don't want to be doing that every time if you wanted to transmit a stereo signal. So that is the mystery why it's doing that. I thought maybe if I stick a capacitor across those terminals, I think I went for 10 microfarad, and as it came on, those two pins would be shorted, and then after a couple of seconds the voltage would go up, because one of the pads is 3.3 volts, the other one is ground. So when you short it to mono, it's pulling that 3.3 down. So I tried 10 microfarad capacitor, that didn't work. I think mainly because the capacitor charged up, simulating me disconnecting the wires too quickly, because the whole transmitter takes longer than that to boot up. So what does that mean? I don't know what it means. One thing I did try, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. I tried a 470 across there, and that did work. Let's touch the wires together again. Mono. Stereo. Fine. Let's turn it off again and on again. Right, I'm going to turn it on. Right, so it boots up in mono, which you shouldn't do, because those pads are not connected together. So let me solder that capacitor on. Okay, so I've now soldered a 470 microfarad on there, which is enormous, and I wouldn't want to have that on the board particularly. I guess if it's in a box it wouldn't matter too much, but I'll show you what it does now. I'll just turn its power off first, get you on the spectrum analyzer. Ready for takeoff. Let's turn the power on now. And it works, because of the amount of time that it holds that 3.3 volt pin down, and then gradually charges up after the device is booted up. So that's fine, but not really the ideal solution. But so I don't think I want that nasty capacitor in there, so I'm going to get rid of that. And I'll also show you what else I did to it, because this might be difficult because it's so small. But as I've done with these before, because they're off frequency, and this one's 20 something kilohertz off, which I don't consider to be good enough, that is the crystal oscillator, and I believe it's 12 megahertz. And if you connect capacitors from either side of the crystal, it's not the crystal oscillator, it's a crystal. The oscillations take place in, oh dear, it's gone loose. I bet Mr. Carson never has problems like this. Right. Okay, what do I get to? That's the chip. It does all the synthesizing and all sorts of other nonsense. And it's got two pins which are connected to this 12 megahertz crystal. So I've connected two capacitors to the crystal, although at the moment these wires go to the capacitors which go down to earth, and I've disconnected those thinking maybe that would affect or cause that phenomenon of coming on in mono rather than stereo. I also tried running audio into it to see if that made any difference, which it didn't at all, because the data sheet suggests it's got an automatic power off if there's no audio present, but I've never noticed any of them do that. I'll show you the data sheet if you're really that interested. It's pretty awful. I've got it on my phone. It's a QN8027 and all sorts of stuff about high performance, low power, single chip stereo transmitter, and what's this? It's 76 to 108, low power consumption 7 milliamps, 65 dB stereo separation or whatever, maximum power output 119 dBs a microvolt. What's all that nonsense about? I had to work out what that was in dBm. It is actually 10 dBm. But why couldn't they said dBm? And really there's not a lot in here, this data sheet. It doesn't give you the pins and what they do and whatever. It just shows you've got a crystal down there and voltage regulator, antenna, power amplifier, whatever. And data that tells it what to do. So that's not particularly useful. But to finish this video off, I'm going to connect those two little capacitors back up again and we'll see what difference it makes. And I'll have to do that off camera because it's just too hard with the size of the components and wires. So yeah, I've soldered them back on. Wasn't too hard. One of them goes to pin 1 on the chip, and the other crystal connection is onto pin 2 of the chip. Well, pin 1's easy to get to, but no chance of getting a wire on pin 2, so I had to go on to the crystal instead. But it works, and I had it all covered in PCB lacquer until, well, to keep the wires stable, until I decided to remove the wires again, just to check that it wasn't screwing up the performance. Let's look at the spectrum analyzer now and the frequency. So now we can see, with the addition of those two capacitors, I've got the error down to 2 kilohertz, and I do believe what this says because I've checked it on a frequency counter, and I think 2 kilohertz error is insignificant on a wide FM signal, and that's the best I can do with it. Any more capacitors than that and it gets all upset and stops oscillating altogether. So I don't know what to do. Shall I buy another one? I'm inclined to buy another one of these and see if that one does the same as this one does. And what else have I done to it? Right, well, over here originally there was a 3.5mm stereo jack on there, but I always take them off because I just want to wire what signal straight in. That's the left and right, or right and left. And when you plug a plug into here, it shorts those two. And I believe the purpose of that is to switch it into stereo and also to disconnect the little microphone, which I've removed because I don't want to use it as a bug. So I don't think I caused any trouble by doing that because I've done this many times. So anyway, not the most exciting of videos, and I've done so many of these videos on these transmitters, but if and when I get another one, I'll see how that works. So, just when you thought it was all over, and so did I, and I found a solution, and the very ugly solution, is to put a 220 microfarad at 6.3 volt across the mono pin pad connections, and then that obviously takes a while to charge up, and switch it into, well, it starts at a short circuit, doesn't it, and then it gradually goes up to 3.3 on the pin, so it puts it into mono mode because the microprocessor's booted up by the time it gets to there. And that's the smallest capacitor I could find. It's ugly, but it does work, so I'll demonstrate it. Turned off obviously at the moment. Right, let's turn the power on. There you go, and you could see there was a slight time delay between the mono signal and then switching into stereo, and that is quite repeatable. And if I wanted to mono it, I just short out the legs of that capacitor, and there it goes. And when I de-short it, eventually it comes back into stereo again. So that's my rather crude solution. It would have been nice to get a 220 volt, 220 microfarad tantalum, because they're a bit smaller surface mount. But I'm not going to spend loads of money on something. The tantalum capacitors would cost more than the whole thing costs, whole transmitter. But just to prove that I'm not making all this up, because I've showed you test equipment, I haven't shown you the real world, have I? Let's go up here to my tuner, and if you can see the red light on the end, that is the stereo indicator, obviously, when I can make things stable. Right, and now if I short to mono, stereo goes out and comes back again. And you can also notice, if I turn the volume up, how noisy that is in stereo, because it's getting quite a poor signal. Mono it and the signal's back, sounds better. And then back to stereo. If I put an antenna on that, the end of that cable that goes into the analyzer, there you go, now you got nice clean signal. So final thing is, the most important thing of all, which I haven't demonstrated, is how does it sound? Hope it's not too loud. Right, I think they sound extremely good for what they cost, and I could hear it in stereo quite clearly, but you wouldn't do because I'm using a mono microphone. So that's the way it is, and don't think there's much more to say about it. It's on 87.5 at the moment, and seems to work quite well all the way across the band. I tried it on 107.9 earlier, it sounded just as good up there. So I think really this is the end of this video, but I'm very tempted to buy another one because they're so cheap, £6 something. Well, it's roughly the cost of a pint of beer, isn't it? And how long does a pint of beer last? Not very long if I drink it. Whereas something like this will last a bit longer. So another long video that went on and on and on. I just can't seem to do short videos. Perhaps that's why people never get to the end of them, except certain people. Anyway, bye for now. Oh, just in case you wondered about the music, because you're probably hearing it and thinking, where have I heard that before? It was roughly 50 years ago, if not longer. Alkie Brooks and Robert Palmer were in a group called Vinegar Joe. And I think that was Alkie Brooks at her best, really, before she went on to more softer songs on her own. Anyway, trivial information, and probably most of you have never even heard of Alkie Brooks or Robert Palmer. Best wishes for now.